Are you halfway through or at the midpoint of Nano? Or starting Nano late? Or are you a Nano Rebel like myself and just coming along for the ride? We all experience challenges, and today I brought on a special guest to discuss the challenges and solutions. Let's get into it. I've got today's guest, Emma Bennett. Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey Andy, thank you so much for having me on to chat. Yeah, my name is Emma Bennett. I'm a UK-based writer. I write kissing books basically, but also children's picture books and non-fiction books for writers, including my latest book, Write, Eat, Sleep, Repeat, which is a guide to winning NaNoWriMo, which I guess is why I've been invited on today.
Excellent. Yes, that is part of the reason why I brought you on today, because we need to discuss some things, especially for people who are participating in Nano or joining late, whichever, or Nano Rebels, of course, like myself, because we all experience some obstacles and challenges, and I'm hoping that you can maybe save us from some of these obstacles and challenges that we've encountered, and we probably will encounter for the rest of November. What are some challenges or obstacles that you've come across? Because I know you've done Nano before, and you did win. Apparently, you did win. So,
I did.
yeah, did you want to give us like a few challenges that you came across?
Sure. So my first NaNoWriMo was last year, and I basically joined because I had severe FOMO. Everybody else was doing it, and I thought it sounded really fun, and I was fed up of missing out. So I signed up, and then I began freaking out because I'm naturally quite a slow writer, and I had never written anything like 50,000 words in a month before. So my big challenge essentially was just being able to write faster. I don't have a huge amount of time. I have a really busy life, as we all do. So it was trying to work out how I would be able to fit in those high word counts that I wasn't used to doing within the time. So time management, I think everybody struggles with that during NaNoWriMo. I don't work full-time outside of the house or anything like that, so I'm very, very fortunate that so many people taking part in NaNoWriMo do, and it is hugely difficult to get home late from work or tired and have to sit down and somehow get 2,000 or 3,000 words out of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Time management. I mean, like you say, some people, unlike you, obviously have other things going on. So they may have a job, or maybe they're working part-time, or maybe they've got other things going on in life that just doesn't allow them to write as and when they feel like. How did you manage that time management stuff? Was that easy to manage, or was that quite difficult? Did you have like anything else that was like an obstacle for you trying to get those words in?
So I think the key to it is knowing yourself and how you work as a writer. So this is definitely something that works better for writers who have been writing for some time. Like, I know that I'm not very good at writing first thing in the morning. I need a couple of hours to come to for my brain to wake up. So I know to do other things and get them out of the way in the morning, and then write later in the afternoon and late at night. I also know I'm a huge procrastinator. So just being aware of that means that when I am procrastinating, I can kind of say to myself, look, you're supposed to be writing and you know that this isn't important. Let's go and write. And also just letting other people in your life know how important this is to you, so that they understand that you need the writing time, and that's not that you can't be disturbed ever if there's an emergency, but so that in general you're left alone during your writing periods.
Were there any other challenges or obstacles that you faced that you wanted to share?
Generally, I think life getting in the way of writing, as well as myself getting in the way of writing. You can organize your time as well as you want, but things will pop up, things will get in the way. And sometimes you have to accept that. Sometimes you have to say no to stuff that you might want to do, but yeah, other times you just have to accept that it's going to be a day when you're not going to get many words in, and then just try to work out when you can fit them in somewhere else and be a little bit flexible like that.
Gotcha. Of course. I mean, yeah, I do really like that. We do have to have some flexibility, especially during NaNoWriMo. If you want to have your 50,000 word goal achieved, then we're gonna have to rebalance some of the other times in our life, I guess. And it's really good that hopefully your family is supportive. I know your family is supportive, but not everyone has the luxury, and maybe they've got to readjust certain things somehow. So yeah, that's a really good point. What do you think about people who have potentially writer's block? That was something that has plagued me in the past. What do you think about that? I've got my solution, but I'd love to hear your solution first. Or do you ever have writer's block?
Yeah, I've never had writer's block. I mean, I get stuck with a story, but I think it is a real problem if you do get writer's block during NaNoWriMo, because what that says to me is that you're not ready for the challenge because you haven't planned for it. So obviously everybody plans for NaNoWriMo differently and tries to make the best use of Preptober that they can. And some people are pantstas and they're not going to write a scene by scene outline. But if you genuinely don't know what you're going to be writing for NaNoWriMo and where your story is going to go, that's a problem, because obviously you only have 30 days to sort this out. You don't have the luxury of kind of wandering around in anguish for a couple of weeks while you work it out. What I tend to do if I'm stuck is just step right away from the document that I'm writing in, take my notepad and go somewhere quiet and just kind of try to think it through, jot down some ideas and work out a solution on pen and paper, and then go back to the document. And that seems to work quite well for me.
I actually really love that. That's almost exactly what I would do. Actually, that is what I did. I have done in the past. I know my stuff has been non-fiction based, but if I do end up with some kind of a block that I can't seem to get past, I tend to look at the plan, at some kind of outline, and maybe revisit what I wanted to say. And I find if I'm not writing, if the words are not flowing, it generally means the idea wasn't very clear. So then I would need to go back, which kind of, is what you're saying. You need to have some kind of an idea of what you want to write before you start writing it, which is what Preptober. Great for that. But obviously for people like me, Nano Rebels, Nano Rebels who are joining late, or people who are at the midpoint and maybe they're suffering from some writer's block or some kind of block that they need to get past, maybe just revisiting their story plot, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe going back a little bit as well in the manuscript and seeing if you have gone off a little bit from what you wanted. Is that the problem? Are your characters not behaving the way you expected them to because they've actually kind of gone off script, if you like, and you need to rein them back in again?
What do you feel about balancing the quality of the story and the words, as well as the quantity of the words, which obviously is important because Nano has a kind of a target of 50,000 words. So how do you balance the quality versus quantity problem?
First of all, I think everybody works very, very differently. Though we know writers who can do 10,000 words a day, who use dictation and all these things that work for them. Those things don't work for me. But I think the highest word count day I've ever had was about 3,000, and that was last NaNoWriMo. I haven't got anywhere near that so far this year, and I can't imagine hitting a day like that. Actually, it's been a little bit of a slog. If I write too quickly, my story gets away from me, and I know that it's not good writing. And what tends to happen is I have to stop myself and go, okay, like you're trying to rush this and there's no point. It's just going to, yes, okay, so I'm going to get the words down. But if it's rubbish and if I have to rewrite it again and again and again and do more drafts than I usually would have to before sending them off to my publishers, that's not actually helping me. And surely that's the point of NaNoWriMo. So I do have to slow down, go back over what I've written and tidy it up and work out exactly where I'm going to go. But like I say, there are writers who can either dictate or type very, very quickly and can get huge amounts of words in, and they're happier with a dirty draft, as they call it, as well. I'm not. My first draft is probably closer to most writers' second draft. It's really good. I do one more draft and then I send it off to my editor. So I need it to be good. And I do also edit as I go through, which I know a lot of writers don't do during Nano, just so that they can get those words out quicker.
Completely understand. I take myself a kind of a hybrid approach. So I wouldn't say I'm a full pantser on that front, because I do like my outlines. I really do. But sometimes when I'm writing, I let the writing take me where it wants to go sometimes. Maybe I find, characters or some kind of plot or point that I should have made, I didn't make. And that then requires some editing, or maybe even fleshing out like a previous chapter, or going back to the outline to see what I might have missed, that I then need to write into the rest of the story, if you know what I mean. So go back like a couple of chapters maybe to say, oh, I should have done this, and then moving forward. So yeah, I completely agree with that one, because there must be a balance. Obviously 50,000 words is the kind of goal, but if you rush it too much, you end up just missing a lot of points that you feel you probably should have made, and then it takes more time going back to try to fix the story, as it were.
Yeah. But also, if you go too slowly and if you're editing too much, you're not going to hit 50,000 words. So at the moment, I'm having a problem with my story because I have a domesticated goat in it, and he basically has to follow the characters around everywhere, and I keep forgetting. So if I've forgotten him in a scene, I'll leave a little comment saying, like, where's Houdini? He needs to be in this scene. And then what I like to do when I start the next day is go through the previous day's writing, and I will add that naughty little goat in to where he was missing from the previous day.
Gotcha. Seems very sensible. I guess someone with your experience would know to do that. But hopefully, anyone watching this interview in the future will know to maybe just slow things down a tiny bit. You don't have to step on the brakes as a hard brake or use the handbrake, but maybe just take your foot off the gas a little bit. Have a read of the story where it is as you write. And if you need minor edits, we're not talking major edits, going back to page 1 and editing the whole thing to whatever page you're on at the moment. Maybe just taking a little bit of time to read through the story and see where you are now, to balance it out so that you have a quality versus quantity kind of a good balance with that. So thank you, Emma, for joining me today. Really appreciate your insights. I know you've got a Nano book, and I believe you discussed some of this in your Nano book. Would you like to share a bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I discuss all of this in my book, Write, Eat, Sleep, Repeat. So it's a no-nonsense guide to NaNoWriMo. Even if you are right in the middle of NaNoWriMo, it's pretty short. There is no extra fluff in this at all. It is just loads of tips and tricks I've picked up that should help you to win Nano, because 500,000 writers take part every year in NaNoWriMo, and only a tiny proportion of those actually win it. And I want you guys to be winners.
Thank you, Emma. And by the way, folks, I have actually read the book, and it is pretty good. As Emma says, it's no fluff, so it's a short read. I wouldn't worry about thinking like you have to take a week to read this book. You can read this book very quickly, and you can implement the practical steps that Emma has laid out in her book. Links will be in the description, so feel free to go check that out. And of course, thank you, Emma, for joining me today. Emma's channel on YouTube will also be in the description, and her social media handles, so feel free to go check that out. Thanks again, Emma, for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.